If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start with agenda approval. Two quick changes I know. One is we are adding the approval of the transportation contract to our agenda. And also just a quick note, we will be moving the contract approvals for the teachers union and the superintendent until after our closed session. So we can discuss those during closed session. Any other changes anybody knows about? Okay, can I get a motion, please? Motion, Ms. Robo?
Second.
Second by Easter. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to some future events, please check the district calendar and resource guide or the district website for a complete list of monthly events. Tuesday, August 31st, welcome back staff breakfast and all staff meeting. Tuesday, August 24th, school board work session at 6 p.m. Monday, September 6th, Labor Day, all buildings closed. And Tuesday, September 14th, the school board regular meeting at 7 p.m. with communication to the board and administration at 6:45. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Easter. Second by Ball. To approve the following items of the consent agenda: minutes of the June 8th regular school board meeting, minutes of the June 22nd school board work session, bills paid for May 2021 and June 2021 in amounts totaling $10,053,070, and personnel items that were attached. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Great, motion passes. Moving on to discussion reports and information items. Number 1, 2021-2022 District Operational Plan Overview, projects to advance our vision. Dr. Ronneberg and Dr. Ron.
Wait a moment. Full presentation up there.
Did you try password?
Just because that's yours. Thanks, John. Thank you. Right.
All right, so this is an overview of our 2021-22 district operational plan. We got a chance, the board, to see this a number of times last spring, but for two purposes. One is just we've been together since June, so it's a quick review for you, for the community. It also serves the purpose of being one of the requirements of the world's best workforce plan. So we're just going to highlight some things. So first on the next slide is this is just our one-page strategic plan. It's a governance document that really highlights our purpose and vision, right? So high expectations, high achievement for all, no excuses with that vision of personalizing experiences so that each child feels valued, has a sense of belonging, and experiences success so that they're ready for that next step beyond spring. When they leave us, they're really ready to take that next step to career or college. We work to move towards this vision at the center there by having 3 strategic anchors that we've identified. First is called engaged, enthusiastic learners, and that's all about continuously improving personalized instruction so that we can meet the unique and varied needs of each of our students. Secondly, within the anchor of effective operations, we work to continuously improve our effective management of human, physical resources. And then finally, our final anchor is increasing that connection and engagement support for our families and community. So with that, what we do is an administrative team, and we talk with you about as the board, is we identify projects within each one of those 3 strategic anchors. And we do this project on the plan is directly or indirectly connected to our vision, using our highest levels of learning. The unique focus this year you'll see is that underneath each anchor, we've got a project that's really about transitioning out of the pandemic. And things have even changed since last April and May when we were talking about it. But we'll highlight what each one of those are. So, but within each anchor, there's unique aspects of really putting this behind us so we can move forward if we want to do really well and really engage our families. So first off is effective operations, and you can see the first one here is innovation and effective use of resources. So I'm sure you've each seen in the media, there's what's called ESSER funds from both federal government and state government that we've received to really be able to accelerate the learning of our students and to support them. And also this really allows us to try some new things because we've had some students who may have struggled with online learning in the past year, things like that. What can we try that might more deeply engage them and help them accelerate that learning? And so this is really about how do we effectively utilize those resources and report on those resources because it's a significant number of resources that have been invested in this. So that will be something we'll be doing throughout the year. The next one, studying school boundaries, and I want to be really clear what this isn't. This is not a full-fledged look at all our elementary boundaries and changing these. But anytime we opened Centerview just a couple of years ago, when you open a new school, you want to, a couple of years later, review those boundaries and make sure that your classes are balanced. Remember when we opened Centerview, part of the reason we did that is because we were at and exceeding 100% capacity in our elementary grades. So what we want to do is make sure that we don't have one school that is packed and another school that's not being utilized effectively. So that's what we'll look at here. And what we don't anticipate is really having to make any full-fledged changes with that. There might be a couple of neighborhoods that we tweak for the future between a couple of our schools, but none of our existing families would be impacted by any of those slight modifications we made there. So I just wanted, on that one, I just wanted to speak and make sure we understood what it means and not. Our next one is redesigning alternative learning program. We've had a long partnership with intermediate school District 916, where they have Metro Heights, which is just down Berkeley, and they serve both Columbia Heights and Spring Lake Park primarily. Other students from other districts can attend there, but students that choose to have an alternative learning program. And we just, as you remember, we talked about this a lot as before. We weren't seeing our students experience the success in that program when they chose to go there that we had hoped. So there's a number of different strategies that we're working on. For example, Dr. Ron worked this summer with leadership at 916. We had a design team come together to say what are the changes we can make this fall to enhance engagement and increase success for kids there. And we're also looking at longer term, determining if we're going to want to continue that partnership or look at other options with another partnership or develop another program. And then this last one, and this is really more staff. Again, this is one that won't impact students, but over time we've got these different staff platforms that we have, teachers using different things. What do we want to get to that we can really improve effectiveness there? So we, so for example, I could send a presentation to review for a school board meeting, and one person might be using whatever Google calls their PowerPoint, another person might use PowerPoint, another person might use Apples. We want to make sure that we have more of a standard protocol there among as we're working with people to make sure that it's that we don't have some of the fragmentation and people having to do that. So those are just some of the projects that are in effective operations. Next thing I hand it over to Erica to highlight you on the communication potential.
Good evening. There are 3 projects aligned under this anchor for communications and connections. As Jeff mentioned, each of the anchors has a project focus area around transitioning out of the pandemic. Within this anchor, the project is specifically about how do we really look at building and rebuilding community as we're coming back from a year of the pandemic. Over the last 18 months, we've tested a variety of new ways of trying to build relationships and create community. And this project is really about how do we be really intentional about how we're carrying forward. In some cases, the experiences were more personalized and flexible for families. We don't want to lose some of the effective learning that we had last year. So this is our chance to really look at some of those key community building opportunities and kind of mirroring the best of the experience so we don't just revert back to the ways that we learned from the last program. Some examples of this are really like, one example is coming up. We can do events or welcoming students and families back to school. do that? Are there ways we can improve that experience for folks? Another example that we've heard a lot from teachers and from families is parent-teacher conferences, and how, for many, the personal connections that happen, the conversations that happened last year were really beneficial, and so how do we continue with some of those enhancements? The second project within this anchor is focused on strengthening community connections. And again, specifically as we come out of this year and out of work we did last year to align district, school, and classroom communications, this year is really about building that and going out into the community and intentionally connecting with critical businesses, nonprofits, service groups, and community leaders so that they're aware of what's going on within our school district. And we also have an opportunity to talk with them about opportunities to engage, whether that's through creative service learning projects or career exploration. And then finally, the third project is around enhancing community education offerings. This is the implementation of the community education study that was completed last year and implementing findings from that study, which will include enhancing programming and really just building on the tremendous success of that area over the last 10 years. And here's hope.
All right. I get the strategic anchor of engaged, enthusiastic learners. And so the first project here that you'll see probably looks familiar, at least the intro to it, transition out of the pandemic. And this area focuses on accelerating student learning and supporting social and emotional well-being. Just like you've seen, or just like Jeff shared in the transition out of pandemic under operations, he mentioned each school designing around accelerating student learning and accelerating and enriching student learning experiences. And this project will look at how each school is doing that, focus on implementation, and then evaluate the impact of that. Also, this project looks at refining and implementing our district-wide guidance document for targeted academic support, as well as enhancing and expanding our mental health screening services as we come out of the pandemic. Next project under this anchor is one that we call Support All Staff as Learners. And as you are all well aware, SLP is a learning organization. We want to obviously continue to build on that systemic community of learners. And by doing so, that means we need to commit to and support each individual in their ongoing learning and implementation of that learning. So this project this coming year involves revisiting, as we do each year, high-quality professional learning design and implementation. We're doing some learning work around designing a teacher competency, so a competency-based approach to learning for the adults, similar to how we're designing that for our students. And then expanding opportunities for both certified and non-certified staff to engage in professional learning throughout the year, both within their, embedded within their day and opportunities outside of it. Next project you see is to expand SLP schools online K-12. As you know, we have been an MDE approved online provider for grades 9 through 12 since 2008. Earlier this spring and summer, we went through the process to become an approved online provider for grades K through 12. So we added K-8, we were approved there. So this project really includes the design and launch of SLP Schools Online Elementary, which is K-6, and then expanding SLP Schools Online Secondary to include grades 7, 8. Finally, deepen innovative and personalized learning. This project continues to be a work priority for the 2021-22 school year and spans our components. Remember the next one. This will look familiar. Our core components of innovative and personalized learning, competency-based learning, learner profiles, personal learner maps, and flexible learning environments. This past year, we were able to scale the implementation of this through the pandemic. And as we move into the 21-22 school year, we have a number of milestones that really focus on the interdependent nature of all 4 circles up there, not in isolation, but how they all work together. And you're right on it. So because this is a board priority, we put the key achievement points up here, so we'll just run through those quickly. So last year, we had a team dig into some learning work around various platforms that support a competency-based approach to learning. That team vetted a number of resources. They did a bunch of learning just around the concept of competency tracking and made a recommendation for piloting just on a small scale this year, one of those platforms. So we'll just pick a few little places to pilot that, just so we can learn from that before we would make any kind of choice around that. We've also started developing our portrait of an SLP graduate. We actually had school leadership here, teams here all day today doing some initial ideating work around that so that we can better align our work in career and college readiness with our work in innovative and personalized learning, specifically with our learner profiles and personal learning maps. Another milestone or key achievement point, we'll finish developing competencies and rubrics for content areas that have yet to be completed. Those are listed there for you. We've done it for all the core, but here are some additional areas. And then finally, we'll be engaging in some learning work around the development of a senior capstone project that really the goal would be the culminating showcase of who the kids are as learners. Again, those components of that capstone being aligned to that portrait of graduate. So those are some of the milestones within that work priority.
So, wrapping up again, I mentioned earlier, the students for that aspect of these world's best enforcement requirements and the district operational plan is. Again, we've had a chance to hear about this a couple times at the school board, but so any questions you may have?
Yeah. As you mentioned, we have, are lucky enough to be familiar with a lot of these aspects, but it's always good to get a refresher. Anybody have questions or comments?
So when we left off in June, in terms of our SLP Schools Online program, we were not going to be offering Spanish immersion. But then my understanding is we were reconsidering that lately. I was just wondering what the status is on Spanish immersion online.
Yeah, so with the message that we sent out last week, we had a number of inquiries about if that's being able to offer students that they want to have online learning. That's the implement involved, so that's something that John Frank, the principal there, is going to also send out. Make sure that the staff we'd like to do that.
So it's not.
part of our long-term plan because we need for immersion. That's what we do that is the first thing, but you know, some of that is be more comfortable with all of them. What's left of it.
So if I get asked, is that finalized or we're still looking at it? Like, what do I tell
We
people?
want to do it, the biggest challenge we're going to have is staff.
Okay.
So that's really what we're talking about that tomorrow. So I can do that.
Okay, so right now it's probably, but we're working on staffing and then, okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I got one more,
Yeah.
sorry. The SLP Schools Online, so again, back in June, when we left off, it was kind of geared towards a different purpose than, say, for example, last year's online learning program. And now maybe with everything that's going on, is there going to be kind of two separate tracks of online learning, or are they going to be merged together, being, geared towards kind of the homeschool or homeschool type recipient, or somebody who wants to choose online for COVID-related reasons, or how are we going to do that?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a both and with that. So there, similar to last year, there will be a blend of both synchronous or live learning and then that independent or on-demand learning. So we won't move to kids are 6 hours a day, teacher to teacher to teacher, in front. So there'll be a mix of that synchronous, asynchronous. Our vision of that as of June when we were developing that was just really around partnering really strongly with families or kind of that at-home learning coach in addition to the SLP online advocate, here the teacher at school and the student to design those learning, co-design those learning opportunities. That still remains our vision. Based on where we're at right now, we'll take a gradual approach to that. So probably as we start the year, we'll much more mirror a little bit what we experienced last year, both the blend of asynchronous and synchronous, small group for those core classes,
a really consistent feedback by the teachers. And then as we continue to develop that and as circumstances change, as we again transition out of the pandemic, we'll still have opportunities to move toward that vision of what was originally designed for online, for elementary online.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, so if you did ask that question, the answer is yes, they're going to bring it online. And it won't be where the parent has to be that co-designer or learning, where that was the interest we had from some parents, but that's not what the current environment that we have. So we want to be able to support. And just as an FYI, the superintendent of Mountain View is called, and Mountain View does not have an approved online learning program. So what they're doing is working with their families who want to move to online. And that our message is to enroll in this department. So they asked if we partner with them on that. So actually, they didn't want them just to go find, through all the transitions to these online, programs, full topic programs out there. So they recommend ours because of that. So that's a partnership. And then depending on the number of things like that, we might partner with them on staff tasks. If they have too many staff, they can have this group. So it's a nice partnership. Because, that works because we already have an established partnership with them. For example, we have kids that come over and participate in our OEC and our pathways programs, and we have some kids that go over there for welding, things like that. So it's just a natural next step.
Marilyn?
That with the approval, that any student is getting a certain enroll in our program. Is that correct?
They still have to fill out the enrollment policy.
Great, anybody else? Just want to say, as always, thank you guys so much for your work. I know it's a lot of planning and things continue to change a little bit, so thank you for everything you put into it. Thank you. All right. Moving on to effective operations, improve our effective management of human, financial, and physical resources. We'll have the monthly financial report for May, June 2021. Ms. Amy Schultz.
She's okay, I was hoping she was gonna stay up here. All right, so today we are covering the month of May. For those who aren't usually watching these meetings, each month we give a quick financial update. These are cash basis reports. Just quickly where we stand, cash, revenue, and expense on a monthly basis. So this first report was our beginning, receipts, disbursements, and ending balance again for the month of May. As you can see, we actually brought in quite a bit more than we spent in May. That is what happens every year. $5.8 million in aid from the Department of Education in May, as well as May as part of our tax advance payments from the county as well, so another $5 million there. Those, the tax one is more unusual, so that's the $5 million that we see is kind of a big jump this month compared to most times we have tax receipts. The disbursements are very much in line with what we see in a typical month, so we ended May with just over $57 million in cash. So on the statement of revenue side, this is our month to date for May, our year to date, and our budget for the year. The percentages reflect our year to date as compared to our budget, and where we stood at this point the last 2 years at the same time in May. As you can see, our revenues are a bit ahead in the general fund, as well as food service and community services, very much in line with last year. One of the things on both our revenue and expense statement that is making us a little bit different is last year we did revisions in June. This year we did them in April. So as you look at year as the percentage amounts, it's going to be a little bit different. We look like we're far ahead on the general one because we changed our budget assumptions last month, so it's much closer to reflecting that, whereas last year we hadn't done that yet. With COVID, we actually decreased revenues last year. So it's one of those percentages maybe don't line up quite as much as they typically would if we do revisions at the same time. On the debt service trust and agency, these are amounts that fluctuate year to year, especially the trust and agency. About $5,000 change in scholarship and drastically impacts the percentages, but it was a good year where we did give away quite a few scholarships. areas, we tend to look at them all combined, because building to building, they may be using their money differently, especially as compared to how it was budgeted. But overall, we are looking as though we are behind budget. Again, a lot of this has to do with areas, some of these things we had budgeted for this year, such as the purchase of the velodrome site and doing that construction had not happened as of yet. So with that, that's why this year looks like it is tracking behind. On the operations side, again, due to the budget revisions, those have come up a little bit closer to where we've been in the past. And then the trusting agency and the other debt accounts are very similar. If there are any questions.
I just have a quick question. Can you remind me if ESSER funds have been applied and where?
We have applied them on some of those, so
Okay.
this past school year was a little bit different. We had, I shouldn't say ESSER one fund.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
initial ESSER funds, the 90% and the 9.5%. There was the COVID relief funds, as well as the governor emergency, elementary and secondary emergency relief funds. So those have all been applied to last year.
Okay.
Last year being 2020-21. The next round of ESSER funds, which are the American Rescue Plan, those new acts that passed, those will be coming up in this school year, and can be used, some of them can be used as far out as September of 24.
Thanks.
All right.
You're pulling up June.
Oh, sorry, we do May, June is the audit, so we tend to not do a June cash
Got it.
balance, I think.
Got it. Right. Any other questions from anybody? Thank you. All right, moving on to the velodrome update.
So, this has been a very long time coming. At least it feels that way. So back in 2017, well, 16, 17, when we were looking at land all over the district boundaries to build a new school, with that, we finally settled on the site at the National Sports Center. A part of our agreement with them was that we would be looking to purchase the velodrome site when it became available at the end of a cycling contract that they had. So with that, that was always a part of the board's vision for that site, just to make sure it had a campus feel. And a part of that can also be the green space around it. So while we knew we had a lot of green space to the north, this has always been a part of that plan, was to add this when it became available. Getting to this point took a little bit longer than expected. Again, we were in hope we would have this finished last summer. We didn't, but we did close on the purchase of what we are now calling the Centerview Green Space. Now we're calling it the velodrome space, but on this it says the purchase of the former velodrome site. We want to try to change the language around it. Velodrome's been down for a while. So, with that, it closed on July 22nd. Construction right now, we are currently in the process of trying to finalize our permits through the watershed district. We had hoped we might have them today. It looks like KA and Wold had one more thing that they needed to resubmit with just some labeling on that. So that was resubmitted today. So hoping to get the permits quickly. At this point, we are seeing construction starting no later than the day after Labor Day, completing by November 30th, substantially complete. We will be needing a couple of tweaks, but landscaping, anything that can't be done this fall will be completed in the spring. The current road, just for people who are questioning, that goes just south of the Centerview School will stay open during construction up until the point where the new building is built. And at that point, that would close down. So with that, you can see it a little better on, hopefully this way. So with that, with the school, right now the road comes through right here. So that will, again, stay open until this new road, so coming in off of 103rd, once that is completed, this will turn into what is really just an emergency access road. And this entrance into the site will go directly into the bus parking. So, and staff parking. The board has seen this a number of times, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. This has been, this drawing alone has been really making. So, students the intent. They won't be going across into the construction zones. It will be really nice to have that space available for all of our students
Yeah,
come spring.
that's great.
If there are any questions, or Jeff wants to add anything.
Oh, all I wanted to add is a thanks to Amy for the work that she's done. She's kept me updated along the way, but she's been the one that's really been pushing with MASC to get going on this. And I also acknowledge the work that Neil Ladd and the NSC staff has done, pushing with the MASC board and so on. So it's just great to get to this point. Also, Joe Lamont has been a good partner with us to get to this point. So it's been a long journey. I'm really excited to get to this point. So you actually started construction, because you know it's been a long journey.
That's great.
Just for the benefit of the audience, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but when you say permits, we're not talking about the city and the street.
No, these are
That's-
just to finalize that all of the plans are good, everyone's approved them, and at this point, it is really down to just the final document. Didn't have some really doesn't few spots. So
It's a fair question.
we are there, we are done, it's really just a matter of getting that last little paper. Everything's done in the city. Ours is. So,
What are we gonna do with our extra discussion?
And I have to come up with something for it.
I'll come up with something else.
Right. It's always something new. All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just have one quick question. It's been such a late construction start. Just curious how we would manage construction equipment using that entrance for the school. Is that?
The construction equipment will be coming, they'll do something with that area at 103rd. I
Okay.
mean, getting it all in, they'll get it in before school starts, as soon as possible.
That'll be totally separate from what.
There will be this and construction access point where they can come
Okay, so there will be no impact to the north.
and go. Any dirt hauling, anything like that they do, they'll go up down and work to them, so.
Okay.
Other than the kids admiring the large trucks from afar.
I would.
Always have another.
Right. All right, anything else? Thanks for all your work on that, Amy. We really appreciate it. It's great news.
Thank you.
All right, superintendent's report.
Okay, well, perfect, just to pull that up. Since we've been together, people have been able to enjoy what's been a very warm summer with, not enough rain, but been able to enjoy this summer, but a lot's been happening still in school, so we thought we'd share some pictures. First up, as you can see, is that there pulls this up, was graduation. We had a successful graduation for the first time off-site, having that Mariucci, and something that we'll look to be doing in the future, just with the size of our future graduating classes. We're not able to have that on-site, and in particular that if we had to move indoors, we had no place as a backup plan. So it went really well. There's very positive feedback on it. So I'm just glad to be most importantly, just glad to have graduation, because that's
Yeah.
my favorite nights of the year. When the kids walk across stage, and it's a great experience. Just happy to be able to do that. Next, as you can see this summer, number of things still going on. We've still had kids in the schools, which has been great. So there's been a lot of community education camps and clinics. You can just see some of the snapshots, both inside and outside, on the stage, in the gym, tennis courts. So it's just been fun to have kids in the schools engaged with activities. Also, we've had early childhood classes throughout the summer. See the smiling faces. They've been here throughout the summer learning, and then also summer school and STEM builders. So had a lot of kids involved in summer school this year, and there's just some pictures you can see what the kids have been able to be engaged with throughout the summer. So just wanted to kind of share some pictures, because sometimes people forget that we still have a lot going on throughout the summer, and quite a few kids coming into school. So that is
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to action items. As I mentioned, we're going to approve or discuss number 1 and number 2 after our closed session. So we'll move on to acknowledgement of gifts. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Easter? Second by Forsberg. To adopt the following resolution. Whereas School Board Policy 706 establishes guidelines for the acceptance of gifts to the district, and whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 states that a school board may accept a gift of real or personal property by the adoption of a resolution approved by 2/3 of its members. Therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Spring Lake Park Schools accepts with appreciation the gifts as shown on the donation summary report, which we have up here. Wow, look at all that amazing support. Wow. As always, we are extremely grateful to our very generous community for supporting us. It's wonderful. Any other discussion on that? Stand-in clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Kerwin.
Yes.
Ms. Forster.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Easter.
Yes.
Mr. Strobel. Yes. Ms. Henry.
Yes.
Resolution is duly adopted.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the transportation contract. Is there a motion?
Sure. Motion.
Motion by Kern,
Second.
second by Easter. To approve the transportation contract with Lorenz Bus Service for the 2022-2023 school years as presented. Although this says through 2025 up on the top.
That's typo. It's right up in the title.
It should be through 25. Okay, that's right. Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. All right, do we have a little bit of information on this? Yeah.
And I don't have any type of a formal presentation for this, just more of, the board got a memo to kind of outline just some, good parameters of the contract. We've actually been negotiating this since last fall. COVID had a great impact on that, especially with transportation companies, and so making them very leery of knowing what to do moving forward as far as what they need to pay drivers. So this was something that took much longer else than it should have in a very tough negotiating environment for bus companies. So we partnered with Lorenz for 10 years, and overwhelmingly it's gone really well. That's not to say the bus ride is perfect every time, every day, but overwhelmingly they have partnered with us and been really partnered with Lorenz. So this contract reflects, was really a 2 and 2, it's a 2-year contract and a 2-year extension. We show it as a 4-year contract. It does reflect 7% year 1, 4% and 3 and 3. 7% starts to get us back up into kind of that middle range, and kind of almost a middle low range compared to other metro districts as far as the price per bus route. By the time this 4 years is over, we are very much back down to the low range we're at currently. And we've been there for a long time. So one of the things we always want to make sure is that we are being fair. It's a benefit to us that they are in our backyard, in our district, and that really helps with the time that they incur or we don't pay as buses drive instead of that first stop. So with that though, this really is kind of that where we could get to with this contract. We also want to make sure they can hire drivers. And they're constantly being pulled away with other operators as they come up from different places. So that's kind of the big highlights of that. What a couple of things that we are getting on that. I think you've seen you've seen where Mountain View has on the side of their buses the Mountain View logo. All of our buses want Spring Lake Park logo on both sides of the bus, and one at the front of the bus. So there's a few things like that that we were able to put in the contract for our benefit as well. So.
Awesome.
One of the strangest things about this one for me, although not at all unusual to school transportation contracts, is that there is an ability for parties to ask to come back to the table. And that had not previously been in our contract. But again, this was one of those we went back and forth between, do we just try to get a 1-year contract done, or do we do 4? So we were okay adding it in. It is reflected in most transportation contracts, like what you have now really is very common among other districts. That if for some reason you would do that, but both parties have to be open to that. It can't be just one. So.
Okay. That's good.
Otherwise, this, I should also mention that when we've been working with the board on the budget projections and what's currently approved for our budget for this school year does reflect that 7%. So that's what we've been using since spring in our discussions.
Great. John?
Can we continue to be thrilled?
bus route? No. I think this last year was definitely the toughest, and I don't think we are the only school district that would say that. I would be very surprised if you heard from any districts that didn't say this last year was the hardest for them as far as recruiting and retaining drivers, the starting and stopping of school, as well, and trying to hire staff and keep staff during those kind of times. But overall, I mean, I can remember back 12, 13 years ago when we were with another company and we stole the money. Other than that, and when I talk to other schools, they are still very happy to be partnering with them.
So I think there was something about upgrades to the technology to the buses. Can you give an overview on that?
Yeah, we always try to keep the technology of the buses up to date. Video has been something that has been a bit of a struggle for them, especially the past year or so. So part of that is the money, we don't pay more for it, it's part of the 7% that's negotiated that they're going to update all the buses with new video systems. And they also included them in the contract as a penalty if they can't use it. So something we've been working on again today. There's a harmony for us in that way. So it's just making sure that those stay up to date, so that they're viewable and you can use them in seconds.
We can connect offline if this touches on negotiation stuff with them, but do we talk to other bus companies? Do they come and present offers to us, or how does that work?
We have not this time. We did go through an RFP process when we first moved to Lawrence. And what we have typically found, what we do, Arlen, who is our manager, we outsource that management and the day-to-day. We go through each year and kind of look at what incident reports are with other vendors, accident reports, maintenance of buses, and Lawrence does continue to do very well compared to other vendors in that way. We haven't gone out for full RFP. Part of that was we actually feel we would be paying much more. We don't know that our service would be nearly as good from what we do.
So we kind of do our own internal market analysis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm quite certain this time of the year. This spring, when you send me something, I go back with 10 questions. Okay, now I want to see it on a daily rate, and I want to see it on a hourly rate. So I know where we land, and we're still in a good position.
Thank you.
Question? Anybody else? All right. All right, the motion is on the table. We've had discussion. Any other questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Great, thank you. All right, we are going to move into closed session. When we come back from closed session, we will discuss the approvals of other contracts, but otherwise that will be all that happens after that. Can I get a motion to enter into closed session to discuss employee negotiations? Motion by, was it Forsberg? Second by Strobel. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. We move into closed session at 7:45.